Daehyun stood at the window of his small repair ship and looked at the massive vessel, floating in the darkness of space. The ship was enormous, bigger than anything he had ever seen before. It was made of dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing faintly with a blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. This was a Valkyrie warship. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Valkyrie Empire. They had ruled space thousands of years ago, and their technology was legendary. People said their ships could not be destroyed. They said the Valkyrie had powers that no one else understood. But the Valkyrie had disappeared long ago, and their ships were rarely found. Daehyun was an engineer. He fixed things for a living. He worked on a small crew that traveled through space looking for broken equipment to repair or old ships to salvage. Today, they had found something incredible. Behind him, his two crewmates were arguing. Threx was a tall alien with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. He was shaking his head, which made the small tentacles on his face wave back and forth. Quilnar was smaller, covered in blue fur, with large eyes that glowed in the dim light of the cabin. "No, no, no," Threx said in his deep voice. "We cannot touch that ship. It is forbidden. The Valkyrie technology is sacred. My people have laws about this." "Everyone has laws about this." Quilnar nodded quickly. "He is right, Daehyun. That ship is cursed. The Valkyrie did not just disappear. Something happened to them. Something bad. If we go near that ship, the same thing might happen to us." Daehyun turned away from the window and looked at his friends. He liked them both, but sometimes he did not understand their thinking. "It is just a ship," he said calmly. "It is made of metal and circuits and power sources. There is nothing magical about it." Threx made a sound like rocks grinding together. "This is why humans are dangerous. You do not respect anything. That ship was built by the greatest empire in history. The technology inside it is beyond our understanding." "Is it beyond our understanding, or have you just never tried to understand it?" Daehyun asked. He pulled up a screen on his tablet and started scanning the ship. The readings were interesting. The ship had power, but it was dormant. Sleeping. The reactor inside was still functioning after all these centuries. Quilnar stepped closer, his large eyes filled with worry. "Please, Daehyun, we should report this to the Galactic Council and leave. They will send proper authorities to handle it." "And what will they do?" Daehyun asked. "They will put up warning signs and declare it a protected site. That ship will float here forever, and no one will learn anything from it. That seems like a waste." He moved to the control panel and began plotting a course toward the derelict vessel. Threx grabbed his shoulder with one of his 4 hands. "You are making a mistake," the alien said. "There are things in this universe that should not be touched. The Valkyrie knew secrets that destroyed them. Do you want to be destroyed too?" Daehyun gently removed the hand from his shoulder. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm going to take a look. You two can stay here if you want. I will go alone." The 2 aliens looked at each other. Then Threx sighed, which sounded like wind blowing through a cave. "We cannot let you go alone. If you die, who will fix the food processor? It has been making strange noises." Daehyun smiled. "Thank you, my friends." They put on their spacesuits and prepared the boarding equipment. As they got closer to the Valkyrie ship, Daehyun studied its design more carefully. Something was bothering him. The ship was beautiful, there was no doubt about that. The metalwork was perfect, and the symbols were arranged in complex patterns. But as an engineer, he noticed something odd. The weapons on the outside of the ship were huge and impressive, but they were placed in strange locations. Some of them could not even aim at targets properly, because other parts of the ship blocked their firing lines. The armor was thick in some places and thin in others, but not in a way that made tactical sense. It was as if the Valkyrie had designed the ship to look frightening rather than to actually fight well. Form over function, Daehyun thought. They built this ship to impress people, not to be practical. They docked with the Valkyrie ship through an airlock on its side. The door opened easily, which surprised all of them. Inside, the corridors were dark except for those glowing blue symbols on the walls. They provided just enough light to see by. The ship was empty. There were no bodies, no signs of battle, nothing that explained why it had been abandoned. They walked through hallways that were too tall and too wide. Everything echoed. Quilnar stayed close to Threx, his fur standing on end. Daehyun led them deeper into the ship, following the power readings on his scanner. Eventually, they reached a massive chamber. In the center was the reactor. It was a sphere about 3 meters across, floating in the air with no visible support. Energy crackled around it in patterns that looked almost alive. "This is it," Quilnar whispered. "The quantum reactor. The heart of Velkari power. The legends say it can produce energy forever without fuel. They say it draws power from other dimensions." Daehyun walked around the reactor, studying it from all angles. His scanner was gathering data, building a picture of how it worked. After several minutes, he laughed softly. "What is funny?" Threx asked nervously. "It is not magic," Daehyun said. "Look at this." He pointed to sections of the reactor. "This is a magnetic containment field. This part here is a plasma chamber. These are cooling systems. It is advanced, yes, but it is just engineering. Very good engineering, but nothing impossible to understand." "You should not say such things," Quilnar said. "The Velkari were gods compared to us." "The Velkari were people," Daehyun replied. "Smart people, but just people. They solved problems using science and engineering, and if they could build it, we can understand it." He began taking measurements and recording data. The reactor was magnificent, but as he studied it, he noticed something else. It was not as efficient as it could be. There were redundant systems and complicated processes where simpler ones would work better. The Velkari had built something amazing, but they had not built it perfectly. "We need to take this back to the station," Daehyun said. "I want to study it properly." "You cannot be serious," Threx said, his voice rising. "You want to remove the reactor from a Velkari warship? Do you understand what the Galactic Council will do to you?" "They can be angry later," Daehyun said. "Right now we have an opportunity to learn something incredible. This technology could help everyone. Better power sources mean better ships, better stations, better lives for billions of people. How can we walk away from that?" The two aliens looked at each other again. Finally, Quilnar spoke softly. "Humans are either very brave or very stupid. I am not sure which, but I think we are about to find out." The research station orbited a small moon on the edge of human territory. It was not a fancy place. The walls were plain metal and the corridors were narrow. But it had good equipment and, more importantly, it had privacy. Nobody asked too many questions here. Daehyun and his crew had brought the Velkari reactor to the station 3 weeks ago. Since then, he had barely slept. The reactor sat in the main laboratory, surrounded by sensors and analysis equipment. It still glowed with that blue light, still hummed with power that had lasted for thousands of years. Mi-young was the station's head technician. She was small and quiet, but her mind was sharp as a knife. When Daehyun had first shown her the reactor, her eyes had gone wide. Then she had rolled up her sleeves and said, "Let us take it apart." Together they worked day and night. The reactor was complex, but it was not impossible to understand. Every system had a purpose. Every connection made sense. The Velkari had been brilliant engineers, but they were still just engineers. "Look at this," Mi-young said one morning. She pointed at a holographic display showing the internal structure of the reactor. "These cooling pipes circle around the core 3 times, but they only need to circle once. The extra loops do nothing except make the system more complicated." Daehyun leaned closer to study the design. "You are right. And see here? These power regulators are beautiful, but they are doing the work of 10 regulators when 3 would be enough." "The Velkari made everything ornate," Mi-young said. "Even the parts no one would ever see. It is like they were making art instead of machines. Or they were trying to make their technology seem mysterious," Daehyun replied. "If something looks complicated, people think it is magical. They stop asking questions. They began making changes. First, they simplified the cooling system. Then they replaced the ornate regulators with standard human-made ones. Each change made the reactor more efficient. The improvements were small at first, just a few percentage points, but they added up." Threx and Quilnar watched from a safe distance. They looked worried. Every time Daehyun and Mi-young removed another piece of the reactor, the two aliens flinched. But nothing bad happened. The reactor kept working. In fact, it worked better. After 2 weeks, they had improved the reactor's efficiency by 40%. It produced the same amount of power using less fuel and generating less waste heat. Mi-young ran the numbers 3 times to make sure they were correct. "This is incredible," she said. "We could power a city with this, or a fleet of ships." Daehyun nodded, but his expression was thoughtful. The Velkari had this technology for thousands of years. They could have made these same improvements. Why didn't they? Mi-young shrugged. Maybe they did not want to. Maybe they thought the design was already perfect. Or maybe they were afraid that changing it would make it stop working. That is the difference, Daehyun said. We are not afraid to try. We test things. We make mistakes and learn from them. That is how progress happens. The news of their success spread quickly. In the galactic community, information traveled fast. Within days, everyone knew that humans had taken apart a Valkyrie reactor and made it better. The reactions were not positive. Threx received messages from his home world. His people were furious. They said the humans had committed a crime against history. They said that Valkyrie technology was sacred and should never be modified. Threx sat in the station's common room reading the messages with his forearms crossed. My cousin says I am a traitor, Threx said quietly. He says I helped humans destroy something holy. We did not destroy anything, Daehyun said. We made it better. That is what you do not understand, Threx replied. For my people, for most species in the galaxy, old technology is special. It connects us to our ancestors. It reminds us of what we were. When you change it, you break that connection. Quilnar was getting similar messages. His people were not angry, but they were afraid. They sent warnings about ancient curses and forgotten dangers. They begged him to leave the station before something terrible happened. The Galactic Council sent an official message. It was polite but firm. They requested that all work on the Valkyrie reactor stop immediately. They said that a team of specialists would arrive to take custody of the artifact. They did not say please. Daehyun read the message and deleted it. We are not breaking any laws, he said to Myung. We found abandoned property in neutral space. It is ours now. The law might agree with you, Myung said, but laws do not stop angry mobs. Have you seen the news? There are protests on a dozen worlds. Some people are calling for humans to be banned from ancient sites. Others want economic sanctions. Let them protest, Daehyun said. We are not doing anything wrong. We are learning. We are advancing. That is what intelligent beings should do. Myung looked at the reactor, then back at Daehyun. You really do not understand why they are upset, do you? No, Daehyun admitted, I do not. If someone found an old human machine and made it work better, I would be happy. I would want to learn how they did it. That is because humans are different, Myung said. We do not worship our tools. We use them. A week later, the Galactic Council sent another message. This time it was not a request. They demanded that humanity send representatives to explain their actions. They scheduled a formal hearing. Every major species in the galaxy would attend. Daehyun was asked to go. He was the one who had found the reactor. He was the one who had studied it. The human government said they would send an ambassador to speak on behalf of all humanity, but they wanted Daehyun there to provide technical details. The night before he left, Daehyun stood in the laboratory looking at the reactor. It glowed peacefully, producing clean power without noise or pollution. It was a beautiful machine. The Valkyrie had created something wonderful, and now humans had made it even better. He could not understand why that made people angry. Myung came to stand beside him. Are you nervous about the hearing? A little, Daehyun admitted. I'm not good at politics. I am an engineer. Just tell them the truth, Myung said. Explain what we did and why we did it. Maybe they will understand. Daehyun smiled, but he did not feel confident. He had a feeling that understanding would not be enough. The galaxy was about to judge humanity, and the verdict would determine their future among the stars. As his ship prepared to leave the station, Threx and Quilnar came to say goodbye. Despite everything, they were still his friends. Threx placed one of his heavy hands on Daehyun's shoulder. Good luck, human. I think you will need it. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It was built to hold representatives from hundreds of species, and today every seat was filled. The chamber was shaped like a bowl, with rows of seats rising up on all sides. At the bottom, in the center, was a small platform where those being questioned had to stand. Daehyun stood on that platform. Next to him was Ambassador Jiwon, a woman who had spent 30 years dealing with alien governments. She wore formal diplomatic robes and carried herself with quiet confidence. Daehyun felt very small in his simple engineer's uniform. The chamber was filled with noise. Hundreds of aliens were talking, arguing, gesturing with whatever appendages they had. Some were angry. Others looked frightened. A few seemed curious, but most looked at the two humans with suspicion. The High Arbiter called for silence. She was a tall being with silver skin and too many eyes. When she spoke, her voice echoed through the chamber. We are here to address the actions of humanity regarding ancient Valkyrie technology. The charges are serious. desecration of sacred artifacts, violation of cultural protection laws, and reckless endangerment through tampering with technology beyond their understanding. Ambassador G1 bowed respectfully. With respect, High Arbiter, we dispute these charges. We have broken no laws. We found abandoned property and studied it. There is no regulation that forbids this. A representative from the Thorian Confederation stood up. He was massive, with armor-like skin and glowing red eyes. You speak of laws as if they are all that matters. What of respect? What of tradition? The Velkari were one of the great powers of the galaxy. Their technology is part of our shared heritage. You had no right to touch it. Other voices joined in. An Nexari diplomat floated in her containment sphere, her tentacles waving in agitation. The humans do not understand. They see everything as a puzzle to solve. They do not respect the mysteries that should remain mysterious. A Zalthani elder hissed through his translator. Their actions are dangerous. The Velkari disappeared for a reason. Perhaps their own technology destroyed them. By replicating their work, humans risk the same fate. Ambassador G1 listened to each speaker. Then she spoke calmly. I understand your concerns, but I must ask a question. Why should any technology be off limits to study? Why should we treat machines as if they were holy relics? The Thorian representative slammed a fist on his desk. Because some things are sacred. The Velkari reactor was a gift from their gods. It was not meant to be taken apart like a broken toy. With respect, G1 said, how do you know it was a gift from gods? Did you see these gods give it to them? The chamber erupted in angry voices. The High Arbiter called for order, but it took several minutes before everyone settled down. When there was finally quiet, a different alien stood. This one was old, with wrinkled skin and kind eyes. He was a historian from a peaceful species called the Marani. Perhaps, the old Marani said, we should let the human engineer speak. He is the one who actually studied the reactor. Let us hear what he learned. All eyes turned to Daehyun. He felt his heart beating fast. Public speaking was not something he enjoyed, but he took a deep breath and began. The Velkari reactor is an impressive machine, he said. It uses principles of quantum mechanics and plasma physics that are very advanced, but it is still just a machine. It follows the laws of physics. It can be understood. The Zalthani elder leaned forward. You claim to understand technology that is thousands of years beyond your own. Not completely, Daehyun admitted, but more each day. That is how learning works. You start with what you do not know and you study until you do know. The Velkari were not gods. They were engineers. Very good ones, but still just people who solve problems. Impossible, the Thorian said. The Velkari technology was perfect. It could not be improved. We improved it by 40%, Daehyun said simply. The chamber went silent. We made the reactor more efficient. It produces the same power with less fuel and less waste heat. The Velkari design was good, but it was not perfect. Nothing made by intelligent beings is ever perfect. There is always room for improvement. The Nexari diplomat's tentacles twitched. You are lying. Such improvements are not possible. I have the data, Daehyun said. I can show you the measurements. The original design had redundant systems and inefficient power flows. We simplified the design while maintaining all functionality. This is basic engineering. Ambassador G1 took over. This is what we want the Council to understand. Humanity does not see technology as sacred. We see it as tools. Tools that can be studied, understood, and improved. Every species here has ancient technology. Have any of you tried to understand how it actually works? The chamber was quiet now. G1 continued. The Thorians have weapons that were passed down from their ancestors thousands of years ago. Can any Thorian explain how those weapons function? Or do you just use them as they were given to you? The Thorian representative looked uncomfortable. The weapons they are gifts from our forebears. We honor them by preserving them unchanged. But your forebears were just people, G1 said gently. Intelligent, creative people who solved problems. They would want you to understand their work, not just preserve it like a museum piece. When you refuse to study your own technology, you limit yourselves. The old Marani historian spoke again. What the ambassador says is troubling. We have always believed that some knowledge is dangerous, that some secrets should remain hidden. But humans seem to believe that all knowledge is good. Not all knowledge is good, G1 agreed. But ignorance is never better than understanding. If technology is dangerous, then we should understand that danger. Pretending something is mysterious does not make it safe. It just makes us unprepared, Daehyun added. The Valkyrie reactor has been producing power for thousands of years. During that time, nobody understood how it worked. What if it had malfunctioned? What if it had exploded? Your reverence would not have protected you. Only understanding could do that. A young alien from a species Daehyun did not recognize stood up. She looked nervous but determined. I have a question for the human. If your people found one of your own ancient machines, would you treat it with more respect? Daehyun thought about this. We do have old machines, he said. Museums are full of them. We preserve some as historical artifacts. But if we found an old machine that still worked, we would absolutely study it. We would want to know how our ancestors solved problems. We would want to learn from them and build on their knowledge. That is how progress happens. The young alien sat down slowly. The chamber was quiet. Many of the representatives looked thoughtful now instead of angry. The High Arbiter spoke. This council must consider what we have heard today. The humans have presented a philosophy that challenges our traditions. We will adjourn and reconvene tomorrow for a decision. As the aliens filed out of the chamber, many of them looked at Daehyun and Jiwon with new expressions. Not anger anymore. Some looked confused. Others looked curious. A few even looked thoughtful, as if considering ideas they had never allowed themselves to think before. That night, Daehyun could not sleep. He kept thinking about the faces in the council chamber. For the first time, he truly understood what made humans different. It was not that they were smarter or braver. It was that they refused to accept limits on understanding. They refused to believe that anything was beyond comprehension. To humans, everything was a tool. The stars, the atoms, the forces of nature itself, all of it could be studied, understood, and used. That perspective terrified the galaxy, but it was also the only perspective that led to real progress. Tomorrow the council would decide if humanity's approach was wisdom or madness. Daehyun hoped they would choose wisely. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council hearing. The council had made no official ruling, but they had not stopped humanity's research either. In that time, humans had continued to study and improve alien technology. This made many species very nervous. Captain Minho commanded the human defense fleet stationed near the outer colonies. His flagship was the Perseverance, a vessel that would have amazed his ancestors. The ship's reactor was based on the improved Valkyrie design. Its shields used modified Thorian technology. Its navigation system was an enhanced version of Nexari star mapping. Every major system on the ship was human-engineered but built on alien foundations. Minho was reviewing patrol reports when the alert came. His tactical officer, a young woman named Bora, looked up from her console with wide eyes. Captain, we have multiple contacts entering the system. Configuration matches Valkyrie warships. Minho felt his stomach drop. The Valkyrie were supposed to be extinct. Their empire had fallen thousands of years ago. But if any of them had survived, they would not be happy about what humanity had done to their technology. Put it on screen, he ordered. The view screen showed a fleet of 6 ships. They were identical to the derelict that Daehyun had found, but these were not abandoned. Their hulls gleamed. Their weapons glowed with power, and they were heading straight for human space. Minho ordered his fleet into defensive formation. He had 12 ships under his command. They were smaller than the Valkyrie vessels, but they were fast and well-armed. More importantly, his crews were trained and ready. An incoming transmission, Bora reported. They are requesting to speak with whoever is in command. Put them through, Minho said. The screen changed to show a Valkyrie commander. He was tall and elegant, with pale skin and eyes that seemed to glow from within. He wore ornate armor that was more ceremonial than practical. When he spoke, his voice was cold and angry. I am Admiral Korthax of the Valkyrie Empire. You will return what you have stolen. You will cease your desecration of our sacred technology, and you will submit to judgment for your crimes against our people. Minho kept his voice calm and respectful. Admiral, we found an abandoned vessel and studied it. We meant no disrespect to your people. We did not know any Valkyrie still existed. You did not know because you did not ask, Korthax replied. You saw something that did not belong to you and you took it. Then you committed the ultimate blasphemy. You altered it. You changed technology that was perfect and eternal. This cannot be forgiven, Captain, Bora whispered. They are charging weapons. Minho raised his hand, signaling his crew to prepare but not to fire first. Admiral, there is no need for violence. Let us discuss this. We can share what we learned. We can help each other. There is nothing you can teach us, Korthax said. You are primitives playing with forces you do not understand. You will return our property and accept punishment, or we will take it back by force. The transmission ended. Minho had seconds to make a decision. He could try to run, but the Velkari ships would catch them. He could try to talk more, but Korthax did not seem interested in conversation. That left only one option. All ships battle formation Delta, he ordered. Shields to maximum. Prepare to engage. The Velkari fired first. Massive beams of energy shot across space, targeting the human ships. But Minho had studied the Velkari weapons. He knew their range, their power, their limitations. He had his ships spread out in a pattern that made them harder to hit. The first volley missed. The second volley hit 2 human ships, but their modified Thorian shields held. The shields were not as strong as the originals, but they recharged faster and used less power. This meant the human ships could take more hits over time. Return fire, Minho ordered. The human ships launched missiles and fired energy weapons. Minho had positioned his fleet to attack from multiple angles at once. The Velkari ships were powerful, but their shields could not cover every direction equally. The human weapons found weak points. One Velkari ship took heavy damage. Korthax seemed shocked. How are you doing this? His voice came over the communication channel. Our ships are superior to yours in every way. Your ships are strong, Minho replied as he maneuvered the Perseverance into a better position. But they are built for show. Your weapons are placed to look impressive, not to be effective. Your tactics have not changed in thousands of years. We studied your technology and learned from it. Then we improved it. The battle continued. The Velkari fought with honor and tradition. They moved in perfect formations. Their attacks followed ancient patterns. They were predictable. The humans fought to win. They adapted to every move the Velkari made. When a tactic stopped working, they tried something new. Minho noticed something. The Velkari were hesitant to damage their own ships too much. They seemed more concerned with preserving their vessels than with destroying their enemy. It was as if they valued their technology more than victory. Focus fire on the flagship, Minho ordered. All ships coordinate your attacks. 12 human ships concentrated their fire on Korthax's vessel. The shields flickered and failed. The armor held, but the ship was clearly damaged. Korthax had a choice: continue fighting and risk losing his precious ship, or retreat. The Velkari fleet began to pull back. It was not a full retreat, but they were no longer pressing the attack. Minho could have pursued them, but he chose not to. Enough damage had been done. Admiral Korthax's face appeared on the screen again. He looked confused and angry. This is impossible. You are primitives. You should not have been able to stand against us. You treated your technology like it was sacred, Minho said. You never questioned it. You never tried to improve it. We treated it like what it actually is, which is a tool. Tools can be understood. They can be made better. That is the difference between us. Korthax stared at him for a long moment. Then the transmission cut off. The Velkari fleet turned and jumped away, leaving human space. They would be back someday, Minho knew. But next time they would be less confident. Bora let out a breath she had been holding. Sir, we won. We actually beat the Velkari. We survived, Minho corrected. There is a difference. But yes, we proved something important today. What did we prove? Minho looked at the stars outside his window. We proved that mystery is not the same as superiority. The Velkari thought their technology was magic, so they never truly understood it. We refused to be impressed by legends. We studied, we learned, and we adapted. That is why we won, not because we are better than they are, but because we refused to stop trying to be better. 1 year after the battle with the Velkari, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Summit was meeting on a neutral world, a beautiful planet with purple skies and 3 moons. Representatives from every major species had gathered, but this time the mood was different. Less hostile, more curious, Dr. Hagen walked through the halls of the summit building. She was a scientist, not a politician, but she had been invited to speak. She had spent the last year working with alien researchers who wanted to learn the human approach to technology. Some species had embraced the idea enthusiastically. Others remained skeptical. But everyone was paying attention now. In the main hall, delegates sat in groups talking quietly. Hijin noticed that some species who had never worked together before were now sitting side by side, discussing technical matters. The Marani were talking with young Thorians. A group of Nexari were examining human-made devices with obvious interest. The High Arbiter called the session to order. She looked older than she had a year ago. The stress of recent events had affected everyone. Today we discuss the future, she said. The humans have shown us a different way of thinking about technology. Some species have chosen to adopt this approach. Others have not. We must decide together how to move forward. A Thorian elder stood. His name was Vrak, and he had been one of the most vocal critics of humanity. But something had changed in him. My people have done something we have never done before, he said. We have studied our ancestral weapons. For thousands of years we used them without understanding them. We treated them as sacred gifts. But we followed the human example. We took them apart. We learned how they work. The hall was silent. Everyone wanted to hear what came next. We found something unexpected, Vrak continued. Our ancestors were clever. They were brilliant engineers. But they were not gods. They were people who solved problems just as the humans said. And we found mistakes in their designs. Small inefficiencies that we can now correct. This realization has changed my people forever. A Nexari diplomat spoke next. Her voice was sad. My people have chosen a different path. We believe some mysteries should remain mysterious. We will not study our ancient navigation systems. We will continue to use them as we always have. But we understand that this means we will fall behind others who choose differently. The young Marani who had spoken at the first hearing stood up. She looked more confident now. My species has sent students to study with human engineers. We want to learn this way of thinking. Not because humans are better than us, but because their approach leads to progress. We have been stagnant for too long, preserving the past instead of building the future. More voices joined the discussion. The galaxy was splitting into two groups. One group clung to tradition, treating old technology as sacred and untouchable. The other group embraced curiosity, willing to question everything and learn from anything. The High Arbiter turned to Hyejin. Doctor, you have been working with many of our species. Perhaps you can help us understand what the humans have actually offered us. Is it just technology? Or is it something more? Hyejin walked to the center of the hall. She had prepared a speech, but looking at all the faces around her, she decided to speak from her heart instead. What humans offer is not technology, she began. It is a perspective. We look at the universe and we see tools everywhere. The stars are tools for navigation and energy. Atoms are tools for building and changing matter. The forces of nature are tools for doing work. Everything can be understood. Everything can be used. Everything can be improved. She gestured to the diverse crowd around her. Many of you have told me that this perspective is cold, that it takes away the magic and mystery of the universe, that it reduces everything to mere machinery. I understand this concern. But I want to explain something important. Hyejin pulled up a holographic image of a human brain. When ancient humans first looked at the night sky, they saw gods and spirits. They created beautiful myths to explain what they saw. Then we learned that stars are giant balls of burning gas, held together by gravity and powered by nuclear fusion. Did this knowledge make the stars less beautiful? No, it made them more amazing, because now we understood the incredible natural processes that created them. The image changed to show a Valkyrie reactor. Your ancestors created technology and you forgot how it worked. You began to think it was magical. But magic is just science that we do not understand yet. When we understand something, we can control it. We can improve it. We can make it serve our needs instead of being slaves to our ignorance. An old Zalthani raised a shaking hand. But doctor, what about the danger? The Valkyrie disappeared. Other ancient civilizations vanished. Perhaps they understood too much. Perhaps some knowledge is too dangerous to possess. Hyejin nodded. That is a fair question. Yes, knowledge can be dangerous, but ignorance is always more dangerous. If the Valkyrie disappeared because of their technology, then understanding that technology is the only way to avoid their fate. Pretending something is magic does not protect you. Only understanding can protect you. She paused, making sure she had everyone's attention. The real danger is not in understanding too much. The real danger is in understanding too little. When you treat technology as sacred, you stop asking questions. You stop looking for flaws. You stop improving. And that is when accidents happen. That is when civilizations fall. Vrak the Thorian spoke again. The human speaks truth. We found dangerous flaws in our ancient weapons. If we had not studied them, those flaws could have killed us. Our reverence almost destroyed us. Understanding saved us. The High Arbiter looked around the chamber. A vote is not necessary today. Each species must choose their own path. But I believe we all understand the choice now. We can worship our past or we can learn from it. We can preserve our technology unchanged, or we can build on what our ancestors created. Both choices have costs. Both choices have benefits. Heejin added one more thought. I want to be clear about something. The human approach does not mean disrespecting your ancestors. My people honor our ancestors greatly, but we honor them by continuing their work, not by freezing it in time. We believe the greatest respect we can show to those who came before is to take what they built and make it better. That is how progress happens. That is how civilizations grow. Over the next weeks, treaties were signed. A new coalition formed, made up of species who wanted to adopt the human perspective. They called it the Innovation Alliance. Other species formed their own group, the Preservation Collective, dedicated to maintaining traditions unchanged. Within a generation, the difference between the two groups became obvious. The Innovation Alliance advanced rapidly. They shared knowledge freely. They questioned everything. They made mistakes and learned from them. Their technology improved year by year. The Preservation Collective remained largely unchanged. They kept their traditions. They honored their past. But they did not grow. Their technology stayed the same while others moved ahead. Eventually, even some of the preservation species began to reconsider their choice. Dae-hyun, the engineer who had started everything, continued his work quietly. He rarely spoke at summits or gave speeches. He was too busy studying, learning, improving. That was what humans did best. They did not talk about progress. They simply made it happen. Myung visited him at his lab one day. They stood looking at their latest project, an entirely new kind of reactor that combined principles from 6 different alien technologies. It was more efficient than anything that had come before. Do you think we did the right thing? Myung asked. We changed the galaxy. Some species are grateful. Others will never forgive us. Dae-hyun thought about this. We showed them something true, he said. Everything is a tool. The universe is full of matter and energy following natural laws. Understanding those laws gives us power to shape our world. Some species wanted that power. Others did not. But we did not force anyone to change. We just showed them that change was possible. They stood in comfortable silence, 2 engineers looking at their creation. Around them, the galaxy was transforming. Some species were learning to see the universe the way humans did. Others were choosing to maintain their old ways. Both paths were valid. Both had their place. But humanity's gift or curse, depending on perspective, was clear now. They could not look at anything without wondering how it worked. They could not see any machine without thinking of ways to improve it. They could not accept mystery when understanding was possible. To humans, everything was a tool, and tools existed to be mastered, to be used, to be made better with each generation. That was the human way, and now, for better or worse, it was spreading through the stars.